you. And if something doesn't feel good when you're doing it, other people can see that. Other people can feel that. And I really believe when we're doing the thing that feels good, we become magnetic.
All right, welcome everyone. I am so excited to be here today with Megan Seamans. Megan, welcome to What the Fundraising.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
So why don't we just jump in with you telling everyone a little bit about yourself and what brings you to your work and to this conversation today?
Love it. Big question right off the bat, life story.
Tell me everything.
Well, nowadays I'm a life and energy coach, and I love to support people to reawaken their magic. And I do that through coaching and also human design. And what brought me here certainly was a life story and a life journey. But I think where it really started to click in and begin for me was as I was making my way through college, trying to figure out my place, trying to figure out my spot, checking off all the right boxes and following all the things you're supposed to do. I was just feeling so frustrated that it wasn't working for me, even though I was following the right steps that everyone was saying. I couldn't find my place, and I changed my major 7 times in university, just stumbling around like, maybe this is it, maybe this is it, maybe this is it. And looking back now, I can see there was so much, not only in my confusion of trying to fit into a box that wasn't quite working for me, but there were also so many worthiness issues and things going on underneath the surface that I wasn't addressing, where I would be like, I'm going to do this thing and follow this path, and then start to feel these feelings of like, I'm actually not good enough to do that. And I couldn't put words to that at the time, but looking back now, I can really see how that was like building up excess anxiety and exhaustion, just all kinds of things underneath the surface. And one day I was house sitting for my parents, and I was sitting alone, which I probably hadn't done my entire like college career. I always had like a roommate or someone around, right? And so I was sitting alone, and I heard this voice that was like, what if you just said yes to you? And I was like, that was weird. Like, what was that? Like, I didn't know what to do with that. And I heard it again, and I was like, all right, we'll give it a try. And it was that one moment for me that shifted everything. After that, I went into my guidance counselor, and I was like, what's going to get me out the fastest? Like, how can I just finish this chapter? And so I finished major. And then when all of my friends were getting entry-level jobs, I kind of started from square zero. I got a nannying job, which I did all through college, and I kind of just started finding my footing. And from there, I ended up building 3 businesses and started traveling the world and just igniting things that felt full for me. And it was all from one moment of saying yes.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And it's really interesting. I didn't have sort of a voice necessarily come out of nowhere, but a huge shift in my life was caused because of a recurring dream that I had. And then I woke up from having that dream for the 3rd night in the row, the exact same dream, asked myself, do you feel trapped? And like every cell in my body like screamed yes. And it was sort of like what it sounds like for you. And then the implementation of that yes, like, I mean, I blew up my whole life. Essentially, I left, basically an engagement, a house, a future, all these things, made a lot of people very angry, lost half my friends. But when people ask me why I did that, which it sounds like maybe this was what happened for you too, it was like, I felt like I had 2 choices. I could keep going like down this path that was clearly not working, keeping everyone else happy, making everybody else very comfortable, but knowing deep down that I knew that I was supposed to do something else. And I don't know how I knew, but I knew. And I was like, or I could just like follow that, and I was sort of like, how am I going to do that? Like, how am I going to just spend the rest of my life knowing that something else is true and not doing it? And it sounds like maybe that your experience was sort of similar to that.
Oh yeah, 100%. There was definitely like a burn it all down
Yeah.
and it makes no sense. And yet we're moving anyways. And I'll
It
never regret that.
Yeah. Yeah. And in some ways, like it makes no sense to explain, like it makes no sense to somebody else, but it actually made perfect sense to me.
Mhm. It's like it makes no logical sense where you can't like put it into this like
Mm,
formula,
mhm.
but there's just something in you that knows. And that's, I feel like, where all of the best decisions in my life have come from.
Mhm. And I love that you started even sharing that story by saying like, I was sitting in silence and I was in alone, because I think, and I'd be curious what you see in your work around this. I would say for me, I see a lot of people searching for maybe like the wisdom or the answers to the experiences that you and I are talking about right now, but they don't want to be alone. They want to keep themselves constantly busy. They want to be around people all the time. And it just feels so impossible to access yourself a lot of the time when you're surrounded by all these other stimuli. How do you sort of help folks grapple with that piece?
Yeah, 100%. I fully attribute my moment of sitting alone and being in silence to letting that voice actually come through, because
Mm,
we live in a world where there's constantly stimulus around us in general. And then yeah, you're so right. Like we'll put like things on top of that, even like we're
mm,
already stimulated and we already have like life to live and like things to do and
mm.
to-dos that must get done and errands that must get run. And then on top of that, you need to make that rhyme, but it sounded nice. Uh, on top of that, then we're like, I'm going to try and find this fix outside of myself. Someone else
Mm,
obviously has to know the answer for me. And then we create even more stimulus
mm,
for ourselves. And yeah, I always say, a plane can't land if the runway is full. And I think it's the same for our intuition, our inner voices. They're not going to land if our entire mind and being is completely full.
mm. Wow, that is a really good sort of visual of that. I really appreciate that. So you had said the part of the coaching that you do is energy coaching, and
Mhm.
my certification, my coach certification is in energy leadership coaching through an organization called IPEC. So I was excited to talk to you about energy and what that word even means to you, or why it feels like a really core component to be coaching around. So tell me a little bit about that.
Ooh, I love this. It's gonna get juicy. Yeah, I mean, everything's energy, right? There's energy all around us, and we all express our energy in different ways, and we all have different capacities for energy. So that's what gets me excited about energy is that it's everywhere. It's all around us.
Mm,
And what gets me really excited about energy is I feel like people will constantly say things like, I don't have time to do this. And while we can't create more time in a day, like we're all going to have 24 hours in a day, we can create more energy and we can create more optimal energy. And I think we don't look at that, and we don't look at how we can optimize ourselves
mm.
energetically from the internal to then optimize the life that we're creating on the external.
I totally agree. And I actually say I talk a lot about like how it's not time management is not really the challenge, it's energy management, because we've all had time short and we've all had
Yeah.
time feel long. Like even to myself, I found myself the other day saying like time's going so fast. I feel like my
Yeah.
daughter's growing up every day. She can say so many things or explain things she couldn't say before. And it's giving me this real sort of, I don't know, sense of time slipping through my fingers a little bit. Like that
Mm.
age, they just grow so fast. I found myself like getting into a thought cycle around that the other day. I was like, Mallory, go do a headstand. I was like, if you need time to feel really slow, go hold yourself in a headstand for 2 minutes. Like you need some perspective shift here that yes, it's like
Mhm.
fixed, but our experience of it actually can be drastically different. And my sense is that's related in some way to that energy piece. What do you think about that?
Yes, 100%. I love the headstand analogy. That's so good. And it's so true. Like we have those experiences where we're like, did an hour just happen? Are we sure? Like,
Mm,
how did that even happen? And I agree. It's the way our energy has moved in that hour versus when an
mm.
hour goes really slow. It's the way our energy has moved and we've like drug out something for some reason that's underneath the surface.
Mm, I love that. I'm curious what your experience has been like running a business with even the word energy as one of the core pillars of what you do.
I think people are intrigued and a little like, yeah, I want more energy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the first thing people come to. Like, yeah, I want more energy. And I'm like, do
Mm,
you? Do you want more energy or do you actually want aligned energy? Do you actually want energy that feels good? Because one of the things I feel like people get into, the pattern they get into, and even a pattern I found myself in, is I try to put someone else's energy on me. Like I tried
mm,
to operate in a way that wasn't sustainable for how my energy wants to show up. And this is one of the places that I really like to bring human design in as well, because I think it's something that it's a tool that can really help us support understanding how our energy wants to show up instead of just like, how can I get more energy? It's like, what if
mm.
instead of more energy, you created sustainable energy? What would that feel like?
Ooh, okay. Before I double click on this, can you just define for everyone what human design is for folks who are listening that might not know?
Yeah, definitely. So human design, it's literally defined as the science of differentiation, and it's the study of how all human beings are different. So it brings
Mm,
in a few modalities that you've probably heard of before, like astrology, ancient I Ching, the Kabbalah, and the chakra system. And it creates this beautiful blueprint of the way your energy wants to show up with the most amount of ease. To me, human design is all about ease. And there's
mm.
2 billion different configurations in human design. So I've yet to meet 2 people that have the same design, which is what I really
Wow.
love about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so I love what you said about that alignment piece. And my sort of instinct here is that that more piece, that like we want more energy, that's rooted in so much of the like scarcity mindset, capitalism, kind of the structural inputs on what we think optimization looks like. That optimization is like a more thing. And I really appreciate what you said about putting someone else's energy like sort of on you or trying to model someone else's energy. I've never thought about that before. I think it is something I did too for a long time. And so I would often look like I had a lot of energy, but I was very tired.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. It's like that. Are you noticing what your foundations are doing as you're like
Mm,
running? Or even I think the opposite can happen as well, like where we're like, I'm just gonna like take a break, slow down, be in flow, when actually you need to
mm,
have that pace turned up a little bit. And so yeah, it's like, are you paying attention to those foundations? And you don't necessarily need more. We need more of
mm.
you, not just more energy placed on top of you.
Okay, I think you said maybe one of the most important things I've ever heard. I have really struggled the last few years in particular with sort of like the self-care, self-love marketing. Um, because I think a lot of the ways that we are taught to take care of ourselves energetically have not felt right to me. And I don't actually think
Mm.
I've known that until this moment.
Woo.
But I've said to my husband before, I have said to him many times, I've said like, I feel like I'm trying to relax because I feel like I should relax because I'm operating at a high frequency and I need to like turn off to rest. but it doesn't feel good. And like, so, and I literally, my friend has been laughing at this for weeks now, but I texted a friend of mine the other day that I feel like I am pretty similar to in many ways. And I texted her, how does one relax? She was like, what? And I was just like, I'm just curious. Like, I need new things to play with because the things I've been trying don't feel right for me. Like and I get it. Everyone wants me to like, take more breaks and work less and all these things, even though I don't really feel like I work that much. I don't work evenings, I don't work weekends, but people are like, you're always working so hard. But it's like, I like that. I feel aligned when I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for hustle culture. I'm not doing it for anyone's approval. And so I think what you're saying here is so important, is that both from a rest perspective and from an engagement perspective, the way that you want to figure out how to show up is like how you specifically need to show up to get whatever that energy is for you.
Yes. Like sometimes hustle is the flow for you.
Yeah.
I'm so curious what your energy type is. Do you by chance know?
I have no idea.
Oh my goodness. We are definitely pulling that. The moment
I would love to know. Yeah, I'd be super curious. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about that for folks who are listening and are maybe curious too. How do you sort of pull someone's like energetic makeup? How would we figure that out?
Yeah, so you pull your human design chart with your birthday, time, and location. That's it. That's all you need. And you pop it into, there's several systems out there that are completely free for you to generate your chart. I'm sure we can link one around here somewhere. Yeah. And from there, you get this chart that looks like a body, and it has lines and colors and all these different things that are very exciting for me to look at. And when you look at, you might be like, I have no idea what I'm looking at here. But there will be a few written things up above that say something like your type, your authority, and your profile. And those are really great places to start. And you can find a lot of information very accessibly on those kind of top layer pieces of your human design chart. And so there's 5 main energy types, and that's kind of the first layer of human design. And that's where you can start to look at how your energy is designed to show up with the least amount of resistance. And there's so many just beautiful, subtle nuances in each of those energy types that just show different things, like where you're like, I want to just like, it feels good to like be in the creation. And me, I'm like, I need like 27 million breaks to feel really good. And you're probably like, what are you doing?
But I think it's such an important point because, and I'm curious how you balance this in your business is, and like, even in the way you think about like marketing, right? One of the things I feel like I've felt challenged with in marketing is that for me, coaching is all about the nuance of you, right? And that's how you are too, right? And so, but marketing or even social media in so many ways is like one perspective. Each post is one perspective, right? And helping people sort of identify that is a piece of a very complicated puzzle that might apply to you, that might not apply to you, that might apply to someone else. And like, I try to talk about sort of the toolbox, like even when I'm coaching one-on-one, like we're identifying a lot of different tools, a lot of different things to try. Some of them are going to work great. Some of them are not going to work great. Some of them are going to work great in this very specific scenario. Others of them are going to work in this scenario. How do you sort of encourage folks, maybe in terms of how you talk about it more publicly, but even in your one-on-one to sort of play and recognize that this is just not one size fits all?
I think you landed on the exact word that I would use, which is play. Like, let yourself play, let yourself explore. Let yourself try things on, see how they feel, and let it go if it's not for you. Because at the end of the day, especially when we're looking at things like marketing, like there's 1,000,001 ways to get to success. Like there's so many success stories out there, and all of them have done it differently. All of them have followed a different path. I truly believe there's no one right way. There's your way. And when you can try it on, play, stop taking it so seriously, even like
Mm-hmm.
have some fun with it. Like if you're building a business right now, you're doing that out of a place that's passion, out of a place of purpose. Why not have fun while you're doing
Mm-hmm.
that and let yourself just experience the entire journey, experience it all the way through? And there's certainly something to be said about consistency. Like, I'm not saying like try one thing today and then like completely switch it tomorrow and then switch it again the next day and then switch it again the day after that. It's about finding what feels true for you. And if something doesn't feel good when you're doing it, other people can see that. Other people can feel
Mm-hmm.
that. And I really believe when we're doing the thing that feels good, we become magnetic to what it is we desire. Not because we're just sitting around like, here I am, hands up, doing nothing, but because we're doing the thing we love doing and it feels
Mm-hmm.
really good.
Mm. I totally, I mean, I could not agree more with what you just said. And I think for fundraisers who are listening to this, I want to double click on that from like a fundraising perspective, because I think sometimes we want to practice our meeting or our pitch over and over. And we're so focused on the words and we're not focused on the energy we're bringing to that interaction. And the words just don't matter in comparison to the energy that you're showing up to that meeting with. You know, somebody recently asked me like, how do you make reels or something on Instagram? Like, how do you do so many reels? And I was like, I don't know, I just click on my camera and I do them. And I was like, haven't you noticed, like I stumble over my words all the time? Like I don't edit anything. I have no idea how to edit those things. But I show up when I have something I want to say that I think will be valuable to my audience, and I just do it. And of course, just like you said, that's not the one right way to make reels. But for me, having it not be an edited, not be a scripted process, even stumbling over my words is the most aligned version of that modality for me. And doing it that way then allows me to show up as like fully in my alignment as me. And so I think what you're saying is just so important for folks to recognize. Everyone can feel everything that is happening. And we often want to feel like we can pull the wool over someone's eyes, or if we talk about this other thing, maybe they won't ask about this thing. But even that desire to avoid something can be felt, right? Like we all can sense those things. And so I think it's just such an important reminder.
Yeah, it's so true. And I always like, whenever I'm talking about this like idea of like your energy speaking before you do, if that feels like too far out there, like, oh, what? Are you sure? Even just thinking about if you've ever had that feeling where like someone walks into a room and you're like, ooh, for some reason, I just like feel like I don't want to talk to that person. Or
Mm,
opposite, someone walks into a room and you're like, wow, I need to meet that person. I feel like we've
mm,
all experienced that feeling before. And that's your energy speaking before you do. They've said absolutely nothing, but there was something about their presence
mm,
that said something to you in some way.
mm. Yes. And I think there's something about what you're saying here that is also recognizing the wisdom in more than just our conscious brains, right? It's like your
Yes.
body sensed something. You're like, there was something that attracted you to that person, right? I feel like anyone who's been physically attracted to someone that they didn't want to be physically attracted to can also probably relate to this, right? It's like there are all these other sensors that we have, and we put a lot of pressure on our conscious cognitive brain when there's a lot of wisdom in other places, and they lead us to things like that all the time.
100%. One of my mentors says that like the majority of us live neck up, like we're only trying to live from our headspace and brain. And we actually have all these incredible cues neck down that are constantly speaking to us. And if we can activate those, I think we truly open a door up for magic.
Mm. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about some of the somatic pieces here, because I think so much of what you're talking about relates to listening to our bodies. And I was mentioning before we click record that I feel like there's a lot more conversation right now around embodiment work, which I really appreciate. And I don't think I think 10 or 15 years ago, for me, I would not have been able to access that conversation. I was sort of still asking the question, like, what is intuition? And like, how do I tell the difference between intuition and fear? What are some of your recommendations on folks who are starting to listen to themselves, meaning their whole selves, meaning their body too, for the first time? How do you walk folks through that?
Yeah. Starting to pay attention
Mm,
and starting to notice, like, if you're here and you're listening to this, then you're probably already
mm,
more aware of like the thoughts that are running through your mind and the stories that you want to shift and what you want to change. And so when those stories come up or when those thoughts come up, start to notice what in my body is activated. When I
mm,
have this thought, am I getting like this crunchy feeling in my belly? I don't know why crunchy is the
mm.
word that came up, but or am I getting like a heart flutter when I think
Mm,
this thought, and starting to just notice as that awareness comes through of like, why am I thinking that way? Notice where that's
mm,
activated within your body. And when you can allow yourself to slow down, you can start to open up and activate some of those other areas. So now you're creating channels for that intuition to come through. And you start to notice, like, oh, when I feel fear, I feel it in my stomach and it feels like a really heavy weight or a really heavy
mm,
ball. When I feel excitement, I feel it in my heart center and it feels like this fluttering. Like I
mm,
almost feel like I can picture a butterfly. You start to notice these body cues
mm,
as you just take that quick pause and just notice what's going on? What's going on within myself?
mm. Yeah. Wow. You've said a word a few times that I think is really interesting, sort of in the context of this, which is resistance.
Mhm.
Because I feel like one of the things that happens in our body a lot of the time is that when we listen to it, we feel discomfort in some way. And I'm using that a little bit as an umbrella blanket term, right? But we
Yeah.
we feel something that we perceive as uncomfortable. And then we start to resist that feeling in certain ways. So talk to me a little bit about that.
It's gonna be uncomfortable.
Mm,
I think, like we were talking about at the beginning, when each of us had that moment where we decided to change it all, one of the things we had to do was burn things down that were working for years or
mm,
months or whatever it is. And that's uncomfortable.
mm,
And it's learning the differences between the discomfort of being in your comfort zone versus the
mm,
discomfort of shifting into a new chapter, because both are going to be uncomfortable and
mm,
they're going to be uncomfortable in different ways. And I truly believe a life inside of our comfort zone is actually the most uncomfortable one of them all. But it
mm,
takes us stepping out and feeling the discomfort of burning some of the things away to realize
mm.
how uncomfortable that actually was.
Yeah, it's interesting. It relates so much to so many things. But I was just thinking about how I had a coaching call recently where I was coaching someone around an issue with their staff. And the thing that the person kept saying was that that would be a really uncomfortable thing to do. It would be so uncomfortable to have that conversation. It would be so uncomfortable to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And that they were also telling themselves a story that they didn't have skills to manage that discomfort in the moment.
Mhm.
But when we started to talk about the present moment, the person was managing a tremendous amount of discomfort in the present moment. They were very, very uncomfortable and they were doing a great job managing it, actually. But they were telling a story about their inability to manage discomfort in the future that was sort of like keeping them stuck there. And so there's this piece around like how our brain predicts discomfort
Yeah.
versus how we actually can and know how to manage it in the moment. How do you process that with folks, or what are some of the things you think about that dynamic?
Mhm. This is reminding me of a really great book that I read called The Upside of Stress. And it's all about the science of stress and how stress can
Mm,
actually be a good thing. And she
mm,
talks about in there how humans are the only creatures that pre-create and recreate stress. So we
mm,
pre-create it before it's even happened, and we recreate it, reliving the past again and again and again, where any other creature
mm,
lets it go. They're totally present. Like a deer gets chased by
mm,
a predator, they are in fear. And then once it's done and they're safe, it's done. and they have let it go and they are fully present. And I learned a lot just from hearing that in itself, of playing with the idea of what would it be like to be fully present and to notice, like you said, like how well you are managing things in the present moment, and how the thing that is over here that hasn't happened yet, it actually doesn't have to be quite as big as you're making it. And so bringing yourself back to the present moment, I think, is one of the most powerful things you can do. I have an affirmation that I give my clients a lot. If you're feeling like you're really spinning into the future, and it's creating a lot of built up resistance, anxiety, stress, pressure, whatever it is, I have them just put their hands on their heart, take a breath, and say the words, I am safe in this moment right here, right now. I am safe. And using that as many times as you need to anchor into right here in the present moment, what I'm spinning into, it's not with me right now. And just bringing myself here into this space and creating that anchor point can really help to create grounding so that you can then find the solution to move forward.
Wow. Yeah. It's such good advice. And I wonder why we are so programmed to always be thinking about the future. Like, what if this, I mean, even from a young age, my daughter, we read a book that had a ghost in it. It didn't even have a ghost in it. It had somebody dressing up as a ghost in it, but she's very afraid now of ghosts. And every night when I put her to bed, she's like, Mommy, like, what if, like, is the ghost going to come? And I'm like, the ghost isn't going to come. But even if the ghost came, the ghost is nice. Like, the ghost doesn't live here. It's in that book, like in a different place. But even if the ghost came, the ghost is nice. But it's like, she is, and she's 2.5. She's so worried about the future. And it's so interesting to hear you talk about this. And I love the sort of hearing how other animals process stress and process it out of, I've been thinking a lot about the way animals process it out of their bodies, right? So it's like the deer jumps away from the predator and it shakes, like it lets out all of the stress. It actually processes it. And then it's totally present in the moment. And so just thinking about, maybe I love the affirmation that you gave. And something that I sometimes say to clients is like, if you are having trouble taking that moment, create a transition ritual. Like for me, it's like washing my hands. Like if I need to transition my energy, or I need to transition my thought or my stress or something like that, I need some way to sort of close it out, to say like, okay, like this moment is over, and I'll wash my hands. And like, as I'm washing my hands, I'm sort of visualizing the whole situation, running into the water, running down the drain. And because I think those things are so important to pull us back in.
There's so many moments in the day we can create rituals, like the hand washing. Like, even I give my clients all the time to have a mindfulness shower, because how often are we like in the shower and we're like, what am I going to make for lunch today? And oh, what's on my calendar again? And we're like a million other places other than the shower where we actually are here and present. And similar to what you're saying with the hand washing, which I absolutely love, imagining that energy washing away, cleansing and clearing not only your body, but imagining even the water taking away any energy that's not here to serve you that day or what you're about to step into. And just feeling the shower, like feeling the water on your body, feeling the soap on your skin, and just letting yourself be fully present in moments like that.
I love that. I feel that way about eating a lot. Like I'll be like, I didn't taste any food today.
That's such a good one.
Right? It's like, if I can't remember what I ate for breakfast or for lunch, it's like, I didn't taste the food. Like, where was I? I was not eating that meal. And I love that about the shower. I'm going to try that. My hack around the shower is that I take ice cold showers. And nothing pulls you into the present moment like some ice cold water.
Oh, yes. You are a brave soul.
But it's amazing. And the research, I mean, I, kind of discarded it for a long time. And then finally I read some new research around the like ice bath thing. And I was like, I'm just going to try it for 30 seconds. And what's so amazing about it, and we can put resources below for folks who are interested, is like the way that the cold pulls you into your body. Like there is nowhere else you're going. Like you are deep breathing your way through that ice cold water. And for me, it's like to start my day fully in myself that way. It's crazy. I can't even believe I'm recommending this right now, but it has been like game changing for me energetically.
Yeah, I love that. Everyone's homework is to go take an ice shower.
or do the shower the way you described it, or wash your hands, but to try to play, right? Like if people take one thing away, it's like take one of the strategies that we've talked about and play with it and see what comes up, what you feel, what you think. Like, I think the most important thing is like when we try to kind of like over hustle, or we like stay disembodied in many ways while we're doing these things, and we're like, did it work? And we like ask ourselves at the end of the day, like, was I more productive? Was I like more optimized? And it's like, that's not where the answer lies. Like the answer lies in like you asking yourself after you've done the thing, like, how did that feel? What was that like for you?
I'm so obsessed with that. I recently got rid of my like morning routine because I found that I was doing that. Like, did I do all the things? And did I do all the things right? Did I do them well? And like really like almost like grading myself on this morning routine instead of being present with it and getting out of my morning what I needed for my morning, not what works for other people or like fit for other people setting their morning up, but what do I actually need in the morning? So I love that, of just like be present with what you're doing and then ask yourself directly after, how did it go?
How did it feel? I know. And I feel like this has changed a little bit, maybe in the last like year or two, but I feel like when I first started coaching, you know, and I would talk to people about the way they talk to themselves, and they'd be like, you're telling us to talk to ourselves. And I was like, honey, you are talking to yourself all day, every day. What we are talking about is you choosing how you talk to yourself, not whether or not you actually talk to yourself, because that is happening. How do you like help people build that relationship with themselves if maybe that they haven't had the best relationship, or they haven't even sort of recognized that it is a relationship to cultivate and build just like it is with anybody else?
I think that's step one is knowing that and recognizing and bringing the awareness, like you're doing it, right? It's like thousands of thoughts a day that are constantly circulating. So it's bringing that awareness in, step one. One of my favorite tools to use if you are feeling that disconnect, if you feel like you can't fully grasp it, one of my favorite tools to use is a journal, because you can actually see in front of you what's coming out of headspace, and really use that time to connect with what you are moving through. So I'm a big fan of like free write journaling, where you just go in and you fill up the page or fill up 2 pages, whatever feels good for you, and just letting it fly. Like you can write about anything. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to go in order. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be like for anything. It doesn't even have to have a purpose, but to empty your mind and to start noticing what are the things that are going on. And I keep all my old journals, and sometimes I'll revisit them and notice like, like that was the season I was in. And I see the pieces and parts that was going on in the background there. Okay, I get it. And just being, as you're like implementing a journaling routine, if that's something that feels good for you, noticing how you're shifting, how you're growing, and noticing the way you're speaking to yourself. I think that can be a really powerful way to do that.
I love that. I love that. And I'm curious, and maybe this is related to that strategy. You were talking before around that discomfort piece, and how when folks are moving or, you know, shifting a way that they operate in the world, they're likely going to go through a fair amount of discomfort as they're moving into more alignment with themselves, because they're going to maybe make other people uncomfortable. And when we make other people uncomfortable, we tend to hear about it. And if we have any sort of people pleasing or perfectionist tendencies, or the things I know a lot of my listeners and myself deal with, it means that there's this sort of, I don't know, crucible of discomfort that I feel like sometimes happens before, at least I'll just speak for myself, before I've maybe built my muscle around something, or which is like some of my sort of resilience around a new way of operating. There is this sort of tension point I have to overcome and sort of keep walking through, even though it's uncomfortable. Talk to me a little bit about how you think about that piece of the transformation process and how you support clients through that.
I think the most important thing you can do with that tension is to really honor it and feel it instead of trying to rush past it, because that's likely one of the patterns that kind of brought that stuckness on in the first place, was rushing past and pushing down and repressing and pushing it away. And we think if we can just like do this thing over here, then all of this will go away over here. But it doesn't actually go away. It's just kind of like we're like pushing a beach ball underwater and it's like trying to pop back up. And so I think the most important thing we can do is we can give that tension voice, whether it is with a coach or a mentor or someone who can just offer that sounding board for you, not necessarily giving you advice or telling you what to do with it, but giving that tension voice and just having that space where you can be like, hey, here's where I'm at right now. And it is uncomfortable and it feels like friction and it feels tense and I don't like it. And that's where I am. Instead of, I'm just going to shove that down and I'm just going to keep running towards the thing I want. And I'm just going to create even more tension on top of it. And we really believe if we give it voice, we start to alchemize it into something new.
Wow. I love that. And I think it made me think about something that I'm not sure I've really thought about before, which is how isolating sometimes this work can be, particularly if it means shifting patterns that run contrary to the groups or the community that have been a really huge part of your identity, and like where you get that sense of belonging from, and how important, there are so many reasons why I'm a big advocate for people having coaches. I always have a coach, like I'm always being coached, and community. But I think something I'd never really thought about before that you're opening up my eyes to is like, it also is just so important to have a place where you can say that thing. I'm really uncomfortable right now, and be supported and heard, and not have any of those people want you to go back to that old way of being, right? Because if you, like, let's say you're trying to change being a workaholic, you can't share, or you can, but it's maybe not as supportive to share that you're trying to overcome that tendency with your boss, because they kind of have a stake in the game around how much you work, or, same with maybe your partner, your siblings, or your parents, when you're trying to shift the way you are, because plenty of people have benefited from us showing up in ways that are out of alignment with who we want to be. And so I really want to double click on that piece for folks around, this is why having a coach or a community of folks who are trying to shed and evolve and transform in similar ways is so important.
Oh, yes. I'm constantly going to my coach, like, I'm uncomfortable again. Is this ever going to end? And she's like, no, but I've got you. Like,
yeah.
And it's so just nourishing to have those people that have your back and also have an unbiased, like, bird's eye view perspective, and can just hold that space. Because the people that are in our circle, whether it's for protection or for their own benefit, they might try and pull you back into that old story. And so to have someone that can hold you in the new story it balances it out a bit.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, we could talk forever, but tell everyone where they can find you, how they can work with you if they're interested, or sort of the next steps for folks. And then I invite everyone to highlight a nonprofit that they love that we can do a little shout out for as well.
Love it. Well, you can find me pretty much anywhere online with my name, Megan Seamans. Website is meganseamans.com. There's a free clarity journal gift there on the front page. If you do want to connect in and tap into that journaling routine that we were talking about earlier. And I also love hanging out on Instagram, which you can find me at Megan Seamans. I share lots of free tips and wisdom and dance parties all on one platform.
I love it. I do. You are always showing up with new tools and things for folks to try. So folks should definitely go and follow along there and connect with you. Is there a nonprofit you'd like to highlight?
So you can correct me if I'm wrong, if this is not a nonprofit, but Omaze, it is like they do charity giveaways. And they always are supporting like a different cause. And I really love the story and like just the experience they create with that, because they're always supporting a cause that is really meaningful, but they're doing it in this fun way with like giveaways and bringing joy to someone's life who wins the giveaway, as well as supporting different charities along the way. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I don't care if they're a nonprofit or not. That is a cool thing to shout out. And I think anything that inspires generosity or giving or is super important. So I'm excited to share that with folks. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I love like you said, the reciprocity of it. There's like this full like give receive that just kind of my jam.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Thank you for this conversation today, for sharing all of your wisdom with us. And I hope folks will go check you out, figure out ways they can work with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So grateful for this conversation.